So I won't be recapping every episode of the Pitt Season 2 in this video. By the time this video comes out, Season 2 of the Pitt will almost be over. But we don't need Season 2 to finish, or for the show to finish, to commend it on how crucial and how progressive it is to the times. Before I get going on specifics, the medical system in the United States is a serious source of suffering for millions. The United States is one of the few countries on the planet without universal health care. The United States has vast disparities in care between men and women, but then also white people and BIPOC communities. And despite being ranked one of the best countries for technological and medical innovation, the United States medical system is ranked far lower. Because it's the richest country on the planet, while 79 million Americans are in medical debt. That is a failed medical system. Needless to say, we should all be saying fuck you to the insurance companies that allow for the lobbying of our very health. And one way in which we can do that is art. The medium that is television has seen a few decent portrayals of our medical system. Scrubs, House, Doogie Howser. But right in a time when the corruption of the United States is reaching the consciousness of the average American, comes a show that shows you everything wrong with the medical system. With badass women leads, one absolute smoke show. Just my opinion. I'm not saying I have a crush.
I had nothing to do with the disappearance of my wife. I have nothing.
There's incredibly interesting casting that takes actors from pretty ordinary shows and just brings them to their complete potential as actors. So the acting is incredible, and there's also a shark in it. And I do believe this is the kind of show that can help bring consciousness to people. And not just because it displays the issues and a shark, but it does so in an entertaining way. Not in a preachy way or pretentious way, but understandable and hip. It's violent and brutal and has nudity, which seems to be a recipe of success with any HBO classic. That's not to say that being edgy means it's good. Good often means that it follows film conventions of good production, which it absolutely does in filming and effects. But it can also mean unique substance matter. And being progressive itself these days feels so unique that it feels edgy. I mean, it would be low-key edgy for me to say something like, I'm a communist. I mean, it certainly brings me to the edge. Al Hashimi is a doctor, for instance, that brings me to the edge. I mean, that is seemingly progressive and often tries to bring empathy to the workplace. Besides for her attempt to implement AI, in which I sided with Robby more on that one. But this is where the show can reach people, because real people, IRL, have varying beliefs, especially in a world with so many issues. In our world, we are creating issues by the day. Because of the people we elect, but also because of the system that propagates profit and therefore greed and corruption. AI, for instance, didn't exist 10 years ago, so that immediately brought a lot of issues to the forefront. And you get these weird, worthless innovations and industries that all of a sudden we have to legislate hundreds of things within that industry. And then the system doesn't do a tenth of the legislation and regulation that it needs to do. It's also a bad thing when any country elects someone that does vast human rights violations, not just to its own country, but countries across the world. But back to my point, the show can reach people by having a certain level of understanding that people are complex and have varying beliefs. Walter White and Tony Soprano are likable at times, but then other times, and a lot of times, vile, disgusting human beings. That's clearly a formula and convention of writing that succeeds in entertainment. And The Pitt is doing that with many of its characters. And it's something that I personally think on a human level is something that people understand. If you were to ask everyday Americans what social conditioning is, they would not be able to define it. But if you were to explain to them that systems at play and someone's environment form who they are, they understand that for the most part. So people relate to people that are showing clear flaws, but likable in other ways, but also what they sometimes see in themselves. There are communists that like AI, which is weird to me. There are a lot of liberals that don't follow a very strict rule of human rights for every ethnic group. No one is a monolith. No group of people. And if you call yourself a leftist, first and foremost, you should really understand you have to be an ally of all groups of people, understanding the intersectionality and how class divides all of us. But when we say The Pitt is a progressive show, ultimately I think it's even more progressive for having this understanding that everyone has a unique opinion or two. But it's also just good writing to do so. I think for the first time in episode 10 and 11, I was frustrated with Dr. King's character. By the way, great name. Because like her sister is clearly happy with her boyfriend, but she's pouting around projecting her own insecurities about her dynamic with her sister. Not only that she may not be able to spend as much time with her sister, but maybe also that she may not be getting any herself, largely due to the fact that she has to work at this hospital, which takes all of your time and happiness away from you. Shirley.
And don't call me Shirley.
And this is where we ship. And I'm shipping Langdon and Dr. King. I usually hate stan culture, like I genuinely think you should never stan another human being. But for literal works of art, like albums or TV shows, movies, etc., and fake characters, well, yeah, you're good. I think that that's a completely healthy response to art that you love, but I don't think that it's healthy to treat another human being that way. So we stan a King Langdon shipping. If we're not shipping Supriya Ganesh and me. I'm just saying. I didn't sit in on those meetings about who were so Dr. Robby is another example of how the show is beginning to form character arcs that are complex in all the right ways. I respect Dr. Robby for being a realist as well as genuinely giving a shit about his patients and his job. He's not the villain in my eyes, as some stans seem to imply. He just has some tendencies to be occasionally unfair, unempathetic, or even extremely unwell. Like when he came for Queen Mohan in episode 10, which was one of the worst moments for Robby in the whole show. He was completely out of line. You have to understand that medical workers also have personal issues that will impact their jobs. I mean, honestly, for every job, every person is going to have personal issues that will impact their jobs at some point. This is another bullshit aspect of capitalism, but specifically in medicine, that the showrunner and show writers are trying to convey. Medical workers are overworked, understaffed, and have entirely too much pressure on them. This was certainly exemplified no clearer than in the COVID-19 pandemic. With Robby, we are seeing the writers explore a character with post-traumatic stress. He's currently experiencing these really solemn moments as well as really concerning moments of anger. But when these things happen, you can also understand where he's coming from. He's running on the notion in most of his interactions in the show that you have to be this impenetrable rock as a doctor. We need you here, we need you locked in, you need to be a rock. Speaking of locked in, I need you to like and subscribe right now. In the instance with Samira, he is harshly stating to her that she can't let the issues with her mom impact her work. And in theory, that's not wrong when people's lives depend on her. But it's the way a boss talks to a worker in a demeaning way that is also far too common in capitalism. Or look at how he argues with McKay about helping an unhoused person in episode 11. She was right to do this, obviously, and Robby scolds her. And his rationale is again understandable. We need you and evil Napoleon Dynamite to be here when we are in code red situations especially. But it's the way you say it, again, and the occasional lack of empathy that makes for a great character study. And that's not only progressive to approach human understanding in that way, but just genuinely accurate in the real world and entertaining. But then they also go there in episode 11, introducing 2 Chud ICE agents, as well as a suspicious nurse that I think is also a Trump supporter and also going to cause a massive shitstorm later in the season. I think it's interesting that neither ICE agent was white, and I think that's very much on purpose, as everything in this show pretty much is on purpose. Very purposeful to display how ICE has propagandized communities to target their own. Fascist tactics for controlling a state 101. And if Robby and Abbott don't go full on Chuck Norris on some ICE agents in the last few episodes, we riot like it's an episode of Oz. Unfortunately though, I'm not sure Robby has that kind of motion by the way he runs. Anyways, The Pitt is awesome. I think it's the exact kind of show we need in Trump 2.0. I think pieces like this matter, and I definitely think they make a difference. My only other comment is I hope they bring back Dr. Heather Collins in season 3 or season 4. Such an incredibly good actress and performance in season 1 that the gay exorcisms are almost forgivable. And I'm straight, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they're actually not forgivable. There seems to be a rumor that she's a part of a church that performs such things. I didn't even know that was a thing. But in itself, that's also oddly an example of what I'm talking about. That someone can lead with kindness and be a part of a great project like this, but then also have a really random flaw. Hopefully that rumor is not true, and I'm going to start my own rumor and say that Tracy Efficher would be the perfect Storm in the upcoming X-Men films, barring gay exorcisms. Thank you for watching my latest episode of trying to get cast as Cyclops. And The Pitt is the best show on TV right now.